Most people think working as a night guard in a museum is boring. Quiet halls, silent exhibits, nothing but cameras and dusty artifacts. That's what I thought too, until I accepted the job at the city's historical museum. The pay was unusually high, and the contract strangely long. On my first night, the head of security handed me a folded piece of paper. "Read these rules," he said. His tone was firm, eyes sharp. I laughed, assuming it was a prank, until I noticed the paper wasn't typed. It was handwritten, the ink uneven, as if scrawled in a rush. The rules looked simple enough at first. Rule 1. Never stand between two mirrors in the Egyptian wing after midnight. Rule 2. If you hear footsteps behind you in the Hall of Portraits, do not turn around. Rule 3. If any statue is facing the wrong direction, fix it immediately, without making eye contact. I raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" I asked. The head of security didn't smile. "Follow them, or you won't last." He handed me the keys and left without another word. The silence of the museum pressed down on me, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something. I told myself it was just superstition, some old tradition to scare rookies. But as midnight struck, I realized the air had changed. The stillness was heavier. The exhibit seemed sharper, clearer, almost alive. My shift had only just begun, and I already hated the rules. The cameras showed empty halls, but I kept feeling movement in my peripheral vision. A flicker of shadow, a tilt of a frame, the faint sound of shuffling. I forced myself to keep walking, flashlight in hand, rules folded tightly in my pocket. The Egyptian wing was first. Golden sarcophagi glimmered faintly under the dim lights, their painted eyes watching me. I remembered Rule 1. Two mirrors faced each other near the center, reflecting an endless tunnel. My reflection looked distorted, longer, thinner, wrong. I quickly walked past, refusing to step between the mirrors. As I did, I swore the reflection smiled a moment later than I did. My heart thudded, but I didn't stop. I knew breaking Rule 1 would be a mistake. In the Hall of Portraits, I slowed my steps. Oil paintings of long-dead nobles and strangers lined the walls, their eyes painted with uncanny precision. I heard it then, soft, deliberate footsteps behind me. I froze. Rule 2 screamed in my head, "Don't turn around." The steps grew closer, echoing with a rhythm not my own. My skin prickled, every instinct begging me to look. But I didn't. I walked steadily, forcing my legs to move until the sound faded. By the time I reached the Roman exhibit, my throat was dry. A marble statue of a centurion stood tall in the center. But something was wrong. It was facing the wall, its back to me. Rule 3. My flashlight shook as I approached. "Just fix it," I muttered to myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I looked it in the eyes, something irreversible would happen. I pressed my palms against the cold stone and pushed, turning it slowly. When it finally faced forward again, I dared not look at its expression. I stepped back quickly. My chest burned from holding my breath. The air in the room seemed to shift, as if the statue had been waiting to be set right. Hours crawled by, every wing filled with the same tension. In the native artifacts room, a drum beat faintly on its own. In the fossil exhibit, something large moved just out of sight. But as long as I followed the rules, nothing touched me. Around 3 a.m., I found myself back in the lobby. A glass case near the entrance caught my attention. Inside was something small, an ancient coin, cracked and tarnished, displayed like treasure. The placard below was missing. I leaned closer. The coin pulsed faintly, as though reflecting more light than the room offered. My gut twisted. I'd seen this coin before, or something like it. It didn't belong here, I was certain of it. Just then, the intercom crackled. A voice, low and distorted, whispered words I couldn't make out. My radio didn't react. It wasn't the system. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. I clutched my flashlight tighter. I checked the rules again. At the bottom, scrawled in newer handwriting, was something I hadn't noticed before. Rule 10. Do not acknowledge the coin. If you touch it, the museum will remember you. Cold sweat ran down my back. I stumbled away from the glass case, forcing myself not to glance back. The rules weren't just arbitrary warnings. they were survival guides. Someone had lived through this before me. The rest of the night was agony. Whispers curled through the halls, statues shifted when I wasn't looking, portraits seemed closer. But when dawn broke, the building stilled. I had survived my first night, but the rules felt heavier in my hand than ever before. The head of security met me at the exit. He didn't ask how my night went, didn't need to. The look on my face told him everything. "You followed the rules," he said quietly. "That's why you're still here." I wanted to quit right then. The paycheck wasn't worth the weight pressing on my chest. But something about the museum tugged at me, like unfinished business. Against my better judgment, I showed up for my second shift. This time there were new rules. A second sheet tucked into my locker, written in the same rushed handwriting. Rule 11. Do not enter the storage basement after 2 a.m. Rule 12. If a child asks you for help, do not answer. I frowned. Storage basement? I didn't even know we had one. And the second rule unsettled me more. Why specify a child? Surely no children would be inside the museum at night. Midnight came, and again the air grew thick. I patrolled the Egyptian wing carefully, avoiding the mirrors. My reflection still seemed to lag, but I didn't dare linger. In the hall of portraits, the footsteps returned. Closer this time, heavier. I kept my pace, eyes forward, sweat dripping down my spine. Whoever, whatever it was, followed me until the exit door. Then silence. As I entered the fossil exhibit, a faint giggle echoed through the air. My blood ran cold. A small figure darted between displays, too quick for me to catch, but definitely childlike. "Help me," a little voice whispered. I froze, heart hammering. Rule 12 screamed in my mind, "Do not answer." My throat ached with the effort of staying silent as the voice grew closer. A pale hand reached out from behind a dinosaur's leg, grasping at nothing. I bit my lip hard enough to draw blood, forcing myself to turn and walk away. The voice grew desperate, pleading. But I kept going. The further I walked, the colder the air became, until I could see my own breath. Behind me, the child's voice distorted, deepening, turning guttural. I didn't look back. When I reached the Roman exhibit, the statue I'd turned last night was facing the wrong way again. Only this time, it had moved further, several feet from its pedestal. Panic clawed at my chest. I remembered Rule 3. I had to fix it, but the weight of unseen eyes pressed down harder than before. I shoved the statue back, refusing to meet its gaze. As it clicked into place, the building seemed to sigh. A ripple of air swept the hall, extinguishing my flashlight for a moment. When it flickered back on, the statue's mouth was slightly open. I stumbled back, nearly tripping. The sound of whispers filled the hall, too soft to understand, but too many to ignore. It felt like the museum itself was speaking. Around 2 a.m., I heard a metallic clang from below, the storage basement. My chest tightened as I checked the rules again. Rule 11. Do not enter after 2 a.m. The noise grew louder, like chains dragging across the floor. My keys shook in my hand, vibrating with each clang. I pressed my palms over my ears and forced myself to stay upstairs. Something banged against the locked basement door from the other side. Once, twice, 3 times, then silence. My body trembled, but I didn't move an inch. When I finally dared to walk away, I passed the lobby again. The coins case was empty. My stomach dropped. The placard that was missing yesterday now bore a single word, etched in fresh ink, mine. I ran a shaking hand through my hair, breath uneven. The museum was changing. The rules were growing. And whether I wanted to or not, I was part of it now. When my shift finally ended, the sun rising over the city, I rushed out without a word. The head of security didn't stop me, didn't even look surprised. It was as if he knew I'd seen more than I could handle. But despite everything, I came back the next night. Some mix of fear and fascination pulled me in. The paycheck didn't hurt either. This time, I checked my locker immediately. Another new sheet of rules was waiting. Rule 13. Never let the exhibit see you cry. Rule 14. If you find feathers on the floor, burn them immediately. Rule 15. Should you hear glass breaking, do not investigate. My hands shook as I stuffed the list in my pocket. Crying wasn't likely, but the feathers and glass unsettled me. Who had written these? And why were they always waiting in my locker before my shift? Midnight struck, and the museum sighed awake again. I held my flashlight tightly, forcing myself through the Egyptian wing. The mirrors were darker now, reflecting a hallway that stretched far too deep, shadows moving within. In the hall of portraits, the footsteps returned, quicker this time, closer to my own pace. I clenched my jaw, refusing to run. The sound only stopped when I entered the fossil exhibit. Bones loomed over me, skeletons of creatures that had ruled the earth millions of years ago. But at the edge of the display, I spotted something that didn't belong, white feathers scattered on the floor. My pulse spiked. Rule 14. I hurried to the maintenance closet, fumbling with matches. As the flames consumed the feathers, the air rippled, and a shriek filled the halls, piercing, furious, inhuman. The lights above flickered violently. I pressed against the wall, covering my ears, waiting for it to end. When silence returned, the ashes of the feathers were gone, as if they had never existed. Shaken, I moved to the Roman exhibit. The centurion statue was still in place, but its hand had shifted. Fingers curled slightly, gripping the hilt of its stone sword. I swallowed hard and forced myself not to stare. The whispers returned, circling me like vultures. "Don't cry," I whispered to myself, remembering Rule 13. My vision blurred, but I held it back. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the far wing. The sound of shattering glass. My legs tensed to run, but I froze. Rule 15. Do not investigate. The crash came again, louder, closer, as if glass was breaking all around me. But every case I passed was intact. My reflection in the glass shimmered, movements out of sync. I forced myself through the lobby. The coin was back in its case, glowing faintly. But the placard now bore two words, "Not yours." I turned away quickly, pulse racing. As I climbed the stairs to the second floor, the sound of dragging chains rattled up from the basement again. My teeth clenched. Halfway up, a cold draft swept over me, carrying whispers. I recognized one voice among them, my own, repeating my thoughts back to me in perfect mimicry. I bolted up the stairs, not stopping until I reached the medieval weapons room. Swords and armor glinted faintly in the dim light, shields hanging crookedly on the walls. A suit of armor stood at the center, taller than me. For a moment, I could have sworn it breathed, metal creaking faintly, chest rising ever so slightly. I backed away slowly, trying to control my breathing. My heart hammered, my legs felt heavy, but I didn't cry. I held on, repeating the rules in my head. When dawn finally arrived, I staggered out, exhausted and pale. The head of security was waiting. "You're lasting longer than most," he said. His eyes lingered on me. "But the museum is starting to notice you." His words clung to me the whole day. The museum is starting to notice you. What did that mean? When I returned for my next shift, I hesitated before opening my locker. Inside was another slip of paper, more rules. Rule 16. If you see yourself in the museum, leave immediately. Rule 17. Do not listen if the portraits start to whisper your name. Rule 18. Never fall asleep inside the museum. That night, the air was colder. My flashlight flickered with every step. The Egyptian wing seemed darker than before, shadows stretching unnaturally. In the mirrors, my reflection stood still even as I walked past. I bolted from the mirrors, heart pounding. In the hall of portraits, the eyes of painted strangers seemed sharper, more focused. Then I heard it, a soft voice, gentle, calling my name. "Daniel." My breath hitched. The sound came from the paintings, mouths unmoving, but voices perfectly clear. Rule 17 burned in my mind. I shoved my fingers in my ears, walking faster. But the voices grew louder, hissing, coaxing. "Stay with us, look at us." My throat ached as I forced myself to hum loudly, anything to block them out. When I left the hall, silence returned like a switch had flipped. In the fossil exhibit, I found feathers again. This time, black and oily, scattered near the T-Rex skeleton. I didn't hesitate, I set them aflame. The screech that followed shook the glass cases, rattling my bones. The Roman statue was worse tonight. It had moved again, now standing in the middle of the room, sword half raised. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. My body froze, legs refusing to move closer. A whisper curled through the air. "Don't leave it unfinished." My hands shook violently as I pushed the statue back into place. Its stone eyes seemed brighter, sharper, though I never looked directly. My radio hissed suddenly. A voice identical to mine came through. "Daniel, basement. Now." I slammed it off, teeth grinding. Rule 16 clawed at my brain. "If you see yourself, leave immediately." The sound of footsteps echoed behind me, familiar, steady. I refused to turn around. My own rhythm followed me through the lobby. The coins case was empty again. This time, the placard had changed once more. It read, "Almost yours." My gut twisted violently, nausea rising. I wanted to smash the case, to grab it, but the rules chained me still. As I entered the medieval weapons room, I froze. Standing across from me was myself. Same uniform, same face, but his eyes were too dark, too hollow. My double smiled faintly. "You're doing well," he said, voice perfectly mine. "But you don't belong here." "I do." His words slithered into me like venom. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping my flashlight. Rule 16 screamed in my mind. "Leave immediately." I ran, tearing through the halls, lungs burning, vision blurring. The footsteps followed, louder than ever, matching my panic. Every exhibit blurred past me. Statues shifted, portraits sneered, whispers clawed at my ears. Still I didn't stop. At the exit door, my key shook violently in the lock. Behind me, my double's voice snarled, low and guttural. "You can't leave. You're mine now." The lock clicked, the door creaked open, and dawn's first light spilled in. I burst through, collapsing on the steps outside, gasping for breath. When I looked back, the door had shut. Through the glass, my double stood where I'd been, smiling faintly before vanishing into the shadows of the lobby. I staggered home that morning, mind racing, heart still pounding. The museum wasn't just alive, it wanted me. And with every night I returned, I felt myself sinking deeper into its grip. The next night, I almost didn't go. But when I checked my bank account, I noticed something odd. My paycheck had already doubled, as if the museum itself wanted me back. Against every ounce of reason, I returned. My locker held another sheet of rules. Rule 19, never trust your reflection. Rule 20, if the coin calls your name, do not answer. That night, the mirrors in the Egyptian wing were worse. My reflection no longer mimicked me. It moved slower, then faster, then smiled when I did not. I bolted, refusing to look again. In the portrait hall, the voices screamed my name this time, filling the air with a chorus of rage. I pressed my hands over my ears, running blindly. The walls seemed to close in. The fossil exhibit shook as bones rattled in their displays, feathers materializing like ash. I burned them without hesitation. The shriek that followed nearly shattered the glass cases. In the Roman hall, the statue had drawn its sword fully. Its mouth was open wider now, as if frozen mid-shout. I shoved it back onto its pedestal, refusing to meet its eyes. But the worst was the lobby. The coin's case was wide open, the coin gone. On the placard, fresh words were scratched. "Daniel belongs to me." A cold voice whispered my name, not from the exhibits, not from my double, but from the coin itself. It echoed inside my skull, vibrating through my bones. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head, whispering "no" over and over. The rules screamed in my pocket, "Do not answer." But the pull was magnetic, overwhelming. Through the glass doors, I saw my reflection staring at me from outside. It pressed its hand against the glass, mouthing words I couldn't hear. The lights in the museum flickered violently. Every exhibit groaned, every portrait twisted, every statue shuddered. The building was alive, and it was hungry. The coin's whisper grew louder. "Take me." My hand shook, rising without my command. My fingers brushed the case. Heat seared into my skin, burning deep, branding me. The moment I touched it, silence fell. Every whisper, every creak, every footstep stopped. The museum froze in perfect stillness. I looked down. The coin sat in my palm, heavy, pulsing with faint light. It felt like a heartbeat. like it was alive. Behind me, the head of security's voice broke the silence. "You shouldn't have touched it." I spun, but the hall was empty. Only the echoes of his voice lingered. My reflection appeared again in the glass doors, but this time it was smiling wide, eyes black as void. It mouthed the words, "Now you can never leave." The building groaned, its walls shuddering as if alive. Chains rattled somewhere deep below. Portraits began to laugh in low, broken voices. The Roman statue had frozen mid-swing, its marble blade poised inches from my neck. The museum wasn't waiting anymore, it was claiming me. I ran toward the front doors, but the glass shimmered like liquid. When I slammed my fists against it, my reflection moved on its own, grinning wide, eyes black and hollow. It tapped the glass softly, as though mocking me. The coin pulsed in my palm, growing hotter until my skin blistered. I tried to throw it away, but my hand refused to let go. The whispers grew deafening, hundreds of voices speaking in unison. The rules hadn't protected me. They had led me here. Now I wander the halls, trapped in endless night. The coin whispers every step I take, its weight pulling me deeper into the dark. If you ever walk this museum after midnight, you might catch my reflection smiling back at you. And if you do, pray you don't hear the coin whisper your name.